I had never quite been one to fit into the world of high society. My name is Andrew, and while I've never had the prestige of a Harvard degree or a high-paying job in a renowned hospital, I've always prided myself on something different: my ability to save lives in the most extreme situations. I am not the man who receives awards and glamorous ceremonies, but the man who pulls people out of rubble, who is there when everything else falls apart. I've spent my career in the field of emergency rescue, where every decision can mean life or death. And though my work was rarely acknowledged in the way it deserved, it never mattered to me until tonight. Tonight, I was standing in a banquet hall filled with doctors, scholars, and intellectuals, people who had climbed to the top of their fields with degrees, titles, and fame. Monica, my wife, walked beside me. She was a renowned doctor herself, respected, admired, and loved by many. The woman by my side, with her kind heart and medical brilliance, was everything I could never be. But she was my wife, and this was our world now, a world where I felt like an outsider. As we entered, I felt the weight of every eye that turned to Monica, to her accomplishments, while I stood silently by her side. But I didn't mind the stares. I had long ago accepted that my value didn't lie in recognition or fame, but in the lives I had touched. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that tonight, something would change. Tonight, I would face a challenge that would test me more than any disaster I had ever faced. I walked into the banquet hall with a somewhat unfamiliar feeling. Around me were people dressed in luxurious suits, dazzling gowns, all shining under the spotlight of the hotel. Monica, my wife, walked beside me. She is a famous doctor, admired not only for her talent but also for her kind heart. I felt strange walking next to her. Monica belonged to this world, the world of those who stand at the top, while I was just an outsider looking in. We passed by guests chatting, and I noticed curious glances directed at me. Though I didn't have a degree from prestigious universities, I still felt proud of my work. My job was to save lives in extreme situations, with no diplomas or fame, just actions, just lives saved. I had saved many people during natural disasters, but what I did was never recognized like other doctors. I didn't need recognition from anyone. However, I couldn't help but feel a bit lacking when every eye in the room was on Monica, on her achievements. I had nothing to be proud of except the work I did. Suddenly, I felt a cold gaze from across the room. It was Henry, a prominent doctor in the field, a person considered a model in the medical profession. He stood out not only because of his talent, but also due to his arrogance and the titles he had achieved. I had heard his name several times through the stories Monica shared, but today was the first time I met him. As Henry walked closer, I immediately sensed the distinction in his gaze. "Hello, Andrew," Henry spoke with a tone full of sarcasm. "Who are you? I've never heard of you. How could someone without a degree be here, among real doctors?" I wasn't surprised, nor did I feel offended. I just smiled lightly, then looked at Monica, who had begun to notice the tension between us. "I'm just someone doing my job, Henry," I replied, my voice not too strong but enough to convey confidence. "We all work to save people, not to show off our fame." Monica stood right beside me, and I could see her starting to get angry. "Henry, you can't judge someone just by their diploma. Andrew may not have a degree from Harvard, but he has saved hundreds of lives during natural disasters. That's what matters." Henry sneered, turned his head to look at Monica, then turned back to look at me with a look of contempt. "Oh, really? I guess you never learned anything from those prestigious universities, did you?" he continued, his voice dripping with mockery. Monica wouldn't stay silent. She responded firmly, staring Henry straight in the eyes. "Just because you have a degree from a famous university doesn't mean you're the only one capable of helping others. What Andrew does is something that can't be learned from books. He has truly helped those who needed it, in the harshest of circumstances." The atmosphere began to grow tense. People around us started to notice the conversation between us. Confused glances and silence filled the air. The MC on stage, completely unaware of the growing tension, began reading the names of the year's top doctors. The crowd applauded enthusiastically as each name was called, and each person received a long round of applause. Then it was Henry's turn. "The first award goes to Dr. Henry, a talented surgeon who has worked at prestigious hospitals in New York," the MC announced, and Henry walked up to the stage, smiling smugly. Every eye was on him as he received the award, but I felt nothing but disdain. And then it was my turn. Next, we honor Dr. Andrew, the founder and director of an emergency rescue organization who has saved hundreds of lives in natural disaster situations. Immediately, the entire hall went quiet. Every eye turned to me, then back to Henry. Without needing further explanation, I could sense his discomfort. Henry couldn't stand the idea of sharing the stage with me. He couldn't accept that someone without a degree, without fame like me, was being honored. As I stepped onto the stage, the tension in the air increased. I stood facing Henry, looking into his suspicious eyes. I didn't say anything. I just walked up, received the award, and turned back, knowing that what I had done was what truly mattered. Henry couldn't stop sneering, muttering under his breath, "Unbelievable. They really want to honor someone without a degree like him?" Monica turned to him, her expression cold. "Henry, we live in a changing world. You may have a degree from Harvard, but Andrew has done things you could only dream of." As the MC moved on to the next part of the program, a video began playing on the big screen. I had no idea about this video, but when I saw my image appear on the screen, I felt like time stopped. The video began with footage of an area severely damaged by an earthquake. Everything was chaotic. Rubble, the screams of people trapped, fear spreading through the air. But in the middle of the disaster, I was there. The video continued to show me directing the rescue team, pulling injured people out of the rubble. The footage shifted to a woman being rescued and calling my name in gratitude. The narrator's voice echoed, full of emotion. In the moment of disaster, when all hope seemed lost, Andrew and his rescue team never stopped striving to save lives. Under enormous debris, they found survivors, bringing them out of death's grip. When the video ended, the entire hall was silent for a moment, then erupted in applause. People stood, not just because of my courage, but because of my true dedication. Everyone in the hall looked at me with respect, even Henry. The MC spoke with pride. "Once again, we must thank Dr. Andrew for everything he has done. He is not just a doctor, he is a true savior. He truly deserves this respect and recognition." Henry sat still in his seat, his gaze still full of jealousy, but I didn't care. I didn't need his recognition or anyone else's. I worked to save people, not to receive awards. But tonight I was seen, and that was the only thing that mattered. As the applause gradually faded, the atmosphere in the hall remained tense, but at that moment I could feel a distinct shift. A warm feeling began to spread through my body, and I couldn't help but smile. I knew that although not everyone recognized me like other doctors, I had accomplished something important. I had saved lives. And now I was being recognized for what I had done. The MC, still standing on stage with a proud smile, turned and took the microphone. He began speaking slowly, as though preparing to share some very important news with everyone in the hall. "And finally, we are honored to announce that Dr. Andrew will receive a special scholarship from one of our most prestigious universities, Harvard Medical School." The announcement from the MC struck me like a thunderbolt. A scholarship from Harvard? How could I possibly believe it? I looked around and saw all eyes in the hall fixed on me. Monica stood beside me, her eyes sparkling as though she had known this was coming. "We recognize that Dr. Andrew has not only saved countless lives during natural disasters, but has also demonstrated the invaluable qualities of a true physician: dedication, perseverance, and a love for his work. We are proud to honor him with this scholarship so that he may continue to develop his medical knowledge and skills to help even more people in the future." As these words were spoken, I could feel every gaze in the room focused on me. But this time, it wasn't with disdain or prejudice, but with respect and admiration. I knew this scholarship wasn't a recognition of a diploma. It was a recognition of the actions I had taken and what I had done over the years. Henry, who had been sitting there with an unpleasant expression, had now turned away, unable to hide his jealousy. He couldn't understand why I, a man without a degree from prestigious universities, was being honored this way. But I didn't care. I knew this scholarship would open a new door for me, a door to learn more and to help even more people. Monica turned to me, her eyes full of pride. She squeezed my hand gently and said, "You deserve this. You will help so many more people, and this scholarship is your chance to make that happen." I didn't say anything, only held her hand tightly and smiled. In that moment, I felt a deep joy. Not because I was being recognized, but because I knew I had done the right thing. I had saved lives, and that was the greatest reward I could receive. As I walked up to the stage to accept the scholarship, the lights shone down on my face. I felt like I was standing at the peak, not because of a degree or fame, but because of what I had done for the world. I knew that this scholarship wasn't just an opportunity for me to gain more knowledge, it was recognition of what I had contributed. And I would never stop learning and continuing to help those who needed my assistance. As I received the scholarship, the crowd erupted in applause. But this time, the applause wasn't just for a doctor. It was for a person who had worked with all their heart, for those whose lives he had saved. That was what truly mattered. The flight from Los Angeles to New York felt longer than usual. As I sat next to Amina, I couldn't help but notice how different she looked from the usual crowd. With her many tattoos and striking appearance, she certainly stood out. Not that I minded. I found myself intrigued by her presence, but as I glanced around the plane, I could feel the stares of others, particularly one passenger, Carter, who was seated nearby. He didn't even try to hide his disdain. "Oh my God, look at her," Carter muttered loudly, clearly displeased. "I can't believe I'm sitting next to someone like this. Who dresses like that and has tattoos all over their body?" I could see Amina's discomfort, but she didn't flinch. Instead, she gave Carter a glance that clearly communicated her annoyance, though she kept her composure. "I'm not the kind of person you'd want to be friends with, but I'm also not someone you want as an enemy. All I ask for is a little respect," she said, her voice calm but firm. Carter, not satisfied with just muttering to himself, turned to me as if expecting me to share his sentiments. "I guess I'll leave her alone, but why are you sitting next to her?" I met his gaze, trying to keep my voice steady, not letting his narrow-mindedness affect me. "Just because she doesn't look like you doesn't mean she doesn't deserve respect. I've learned this from my work in rescue operations. Not everyone is the same, but we all have value." Carter scoffed, lowering his voice as if trying to make his next point somehow justified. "I guess I'll leave her alone. But seriously, why are you sitting with her?" I wasn't about to let him get away with the subtle judgment. "Because I respect everyone, no matter who they are," I replied, my tone steady but resolute. Amina gave me a look of gratitude, and for a moment, the tension between her and Carter seemed to ease. We began talking more freely then, sharing our stories. She told me about the discrimination she faced daily, how people looked at her and saw only her tattoos and not the woman behind them. I told her about my own struggles, being underestimated, the challenges of having no prestigious degree, but continuing to save lives in the most dangerous of situations. We both realized we had something in common, people always judging us from the outside, not taking the time to understand who we truly were. A few days later, I found myself in yet another tense situation, but this time it was more formal. I was sitting across from the director, his cold, piercing gaze never wavering as he looked Amina up and down. It felt like he was dissecting her very being, judging her before even hearing a word she had to say. "I see you have a rather shady past," the director said, his tone dripping with skepticism. "How can I trust that you'll represent this company well when your history hasn't been easy?" Amina stood tall, unfazed by his words. Her arms were crossed, but she wasn't defensive. Instead, she exuded a calm confidence, something I admired deeply. She didn't respond to him with more words, but decided to let her actions speak for her. "Everyone has their own story and past," Amina said, her voice firm. "Don't let prejudice cloud your judgment. I've fought my entire life to overcome hardship and become the person I am today, and I will work hard to contribute to this company." Without waiting for his reply, she moved toward his desk, opened her bag, and pulled out a thick stack of documents. She laid the carefully organized papers, detailed reports, strategies she'd researched and developed over the past few weeks, right in front of him. Still silent, she didn't flinch, just watched as the director stared at the documents in front of him. "I've prepared a detailed plan to increase the company's market share in this region," she continued. "If you take a look at these numbers and strategies, I believe you'll understand that I'm not just talking." The director hesitated for a moment, clearly unsure, but Amina wasn't waiting. She pulled her phone from her bag, opened a presentation, and began explaining every key point of her plan. She laid out the goals, the steps, and how she would achieve her targets in a short period. "I don't just have a plan, but I've also started implementing some small steps. The team has begun running some pilot campaigns to attract potential customers over the past 2 weeks, and the results are starting to show progress," she continued. Amina paused for just a second, making sure the director was paying attention. Change doesn't come from empty promises, it comes from real actions. As the director looked at the plan, his expression softened a bit. The contempt he had shown earlier was replaced by a flicker of respect. He began flipping through the papers in front of him, his demeanor shifting to one of seriousness. "All right," he said, nodding slightly. "I'll review your plan, but remember, actions speak louder than words." Amina smiled softly, maintaining her composure. "Thank you. I won't disappoint you." When we observe others, we often focus on their appearance, the visible traits like how they dress, their looks, or their background. However, this can lead to significant mistakes. We cannot judge a person solely based on what they show externally, overlooking their true qualities, capabilities, and contributions in life. In the story of Andrew and Amina, we see a clear example of discrimination and contempt simply because of differences. Andrew, a person without formal degrees from prestigious universities, is someone who has saved hundreds of lives in natural disasters. On the other hand, Amina, with her distinctive appearance and tattoos, is a resilient and determined individual who strives to prove her worth. The key message this story conveys is never judge others based on their appearance or societal stereotypes. Everyone has their own story, with pains and challenges they have faced. Behind what people show, there may be a kind heart, a resilient soul, and real actions that can change the world. Andrew and Amina's story teaches us that judging people cannot be based only on external appearances. We need to learn to see people more deeply, to respect and accept differences, while realizing that what truly matters in life is not appearance, but the actions and real contributions of each person. Have you ever found yourself being judged based on how you look, where you come from, or what others think about you? Or perhaps you have witnessed someone else being treated unfairly due to these same biases. It's time to talk about the impact of social prejudices and how they affect our lives. I want to hear your stories. Have you ever been a victim of societal judgment? How did it make you feel, and how did you handle it? Or have you ever been in a situation where you recognize the unfair treatment of others based on their appearance or background? Your story could inspire someone else, open eyes, and help break down the walls that divide us. Drop a comment below and share your experience with us. Let's start a conversation about the importance of looking beyond the surface and embracing the true value of people for who they are. If Andrew and Amina's journey resonated with you, share your thoughts and feelings. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep spreading the message that actions speak louder than appearances.